I have to tell you, I've been very fortunate in my lifetime to have met fantastic people. And I had a flight instructor. In fact, one of my favorite, if not my favorite, flight instructors. He wasn't the one that I used when I got my pilot's license, but I did use him when I needed to get certified for complex high-performance aircraft. And he was just a fantastic pilot. And anyway, he had all these sayings that he would tell me. I told him one time when I just had first started flying, that, well, really all you need is an airspeed indicator, and he's telling me, yeah, that's so you know how fast you're going at the scene of the crash, and absolutely true. Airspeed's meaningless if you're pulling a lot of G's, So anyway, love the guy. He was killed in an accident when he was training a guy who bought his high-performance aerobatic biplane. And I think the investigation showed that the guy he was checking out in this plane pulled the mixture instead of the throttle, killed the engine on takeoff, and before he could catch it, these planes that are for aerobatics, especially with two people in them, can be very unforgiving, and it killed both of them, unfortunately, and just sad day for everybody involved. But anyway, he was a great guy. Jeff Clausen was his name. But anyway, not to divert too much here, he told me one day, he said, he says, yeah, being a pilot's great and all, he says, but it's the people you meet. And you know what? He's absolutely right on, and it's so true in life, no matter what it is you're doing. It's the people that you meet. So anyway, let's take care of a little business, and I'll continue that story in a second. But first of all, Rob Cockrum, you've won one of the t-shirts, so I'll drop you a line via email, but you can email me to George at Jumping Off the Cliff, and I'll if you want to send me your size and shipping details. And then David Hotchkiss, you have won the radio donated by Harold Stark, the UV5R. So congratulations, and you as well. Send me some shipping details, and I will get both of you taken care of, and congratulations. And as always, thank you so much to subscribers and channel members in particular that make all of this possible. So getting back to it's the people, So I got email from a guy, and I didn't even at first think it was real, but I got email from a guy, Stefan Soloviev, and he told me, hey, you need to come ride my railroad. And I'm like, yeah, sure, you have a railroad, Well, it turns out he's got multiple railroads, very successful entrepreneur. And he told me I needed to come to Alamosa, Colorado, meet up with him on a Monday, and ride over the Veta Pass between Alamosa and Walsenburg, Colorado. So I went there, and he and his son came by and introduced themselves. They had some business to take care of while they were there, so they came as well. Fantastic people. And everybody that I met there, the crews, the manager, every single person was just salt of the earth, dedicated, professional, just fantastic. Treated me like a king. I'm wearing some of the swag they gave me, a hat. I've got, I love long sleeve t-shirts. They're fantastic in Wisconsin. I'll put a picture in. This has logos on the back of all three divisions of the Colorado Pacific Railroad. The one I'm riding is Colorado Pacific Rio Grande portion of the railroad. And anyway, long story short, I took a ride in I bought an electric vehicle. I figure it's the last vehicle I'll ever need, but I have a car payment. I feel like a kid again or something. But so I decided I'd try taking a road trip in my electric vehicle, see how that went. So the whole thing was an adventure. But Stefan, meeting you and Quentin was definitely a highlight of the trip, and I just can't thank you enough for this. Well, I couldn't hardly go through Nebraska without going a little out of my way and hitting the world's largest rail yard, buying a ticket to the Golden Spike Tower, well worth the $12 fee. You get quite a view. But more importantly, they've got volunteer docents. When I was there, it was a couple of guys actually working, old retired railroaders. And they had some interesting stories to tell me. I asked about, because I had read an article where the Union Pacific, as part of precision railroad scheduling, wanted to close down hump yards wherever they could. And they tried to close the humps here in North Platte. And the guys told me that didn't work out so well for the UP. That this was a couple of years ago, a few years ago now, when they did this. He said the first thing that happened was trains backed up for 20 or 30 miles on either side of North Platte. So they had to almost immediately reopen one of the humps, and the plan was to then only use one hump. And they said that was so inefficient that they ended up opening both humps back up, and they've been open ever since. And they classify thousands of cars here on a daily basis. So it's works out well. It's a very efficient operation. And as you know how these humps work, they basically take incoming trains and they split them up and reclassify them and regroup the cars according to where their destination is. And as these cars roll down the hump, they go through a system of retarders, and it makes this horrendous squealing sound, because what they're doing is retarders squeeze the wheel. So they're squeezing the flange on the back side and the front of the wheel on the front side of it. So you can always tell when a car has been recently humped, because the outer edge of the wheel will be very shiny and new looking almost, because it's basically been abraded going through. But when the cars are lightweight and don't have much mass, they aren't slowed down very much by the retarder. And unfortunately today the wind was blowing out of the south, and I'm located on the south side of the yard, and so I can't hear anything. Normally I would be able to pick up the sounds of the retarders in action. You'd hear the cars slamming together, but I wasn't able to pick any of that up today because of the way the wind was blowing. In fact, I was afraid I wasn't even going to get any drone footage, but fortunately that wasn't the case. I was able to get some decent footage. So a lot of times, it's pretty rare to see like a group of 5 cars go over the hump together, but this is one group of cars that will probably get slowed down quite a bit. I have no idea from this distance whether those are loaded or not, but we'll see as it goes through the retarder here what it does. But that's where it's going right now. Right now it started going through the retarder, and so those wheels are being clamped and squeezed to slow that string down quite a bit. Pretty sophisticated setup of switches here and tracks, as you can see all the different groupings of these things. So this particular hump is servicing the westbound trains, and so it seems kind of odd to have cars roll down a hump to the east when this is serving westbound trains. But the reason they do it that way is because the natural slope of the yard is from west to east downhill. So they could do this with less grading and whatnot when they built these hump yards here. So even though this is the westbound hump, it flows from west to east when they're building the trains. And the eastbound hump, of course, does the same thing because of the fact that the yard slants that way. But it amazes me how far these cars will roll, and sometimes they're barely moving. And so that's one of the things that makes a hump yard so dangerous. You just don't want to be messing around in rail yards, particularly at night, because these cars can move at any time. And even in flat switching operations, they'll give a car a little push and it'll roll and roll and roll, and they can be extremely quiet. And you might not even notice that they're moving. They're moving so slowly. So it doesn't take much to get accidentally run over. So you gotta stay out of these places as best as a person can. We're looking towards Cheyenne here, to the west, and off to the north here, where all the coal cars are. That's kind of a storage area and a run-through area. So trains will bypass the whole yard sometimes over on that side of it that are going west. And they'll do the same thing on the south side for trains going east. And then there's the other hump yard. So that's the one servicing the eastbound trains. Right in the middle of the screen, there are 3 main lines that split this into the 2. So the yard's kind of duplicate. So south of the main line is the eastbound yards and hump, and north of the 3 main lines then are the westbound yards and hump. And that car is just now drove over the 3 main lines that roll through here. So typically, if I were coming through on say an intermodal, it would cruise in on that main line, stop, go through its inspections, and then continue on. And I think they stopped them at about that road. I don't know for sure, because it's hard to say when you're actually on the train exactly where you are. But now we're looking back towards North Platte, and I believe that is an arrival yard right there that we're looking at. Then off to the left here of the Golden Spike Tower is a yard office, and that's where all the crew park their cars, the crews, when they're boarding trains here. So that's the facility where they get ready to go out on the road. And on these higher priority trains, the Union Pacific and the BNSF, they don't mess around. They change crews and get going. Now, it takes a little longer in North Platte because typically they're also doing a 1,000-mile inspection. So they're inspecting brakes and the engines and doing some brake testing and whatnot, and physically looking at the train. So it's a little bit longer here in North Platte than it is other places, but it's just a normal operation of things. We're looking off to the right there is the diesel shops, and where they overhaul and do maintenance on all of the engines. It's a pretty good sized facility. This particular day, or at least at the time I was there, even though there's a train lined up ready to push over the hump, they weren't actually humping any cars at the moment. I'm not sure why. Taking a break, I guess. Maybe it was lunchtime or something. Who knows? But this is kind of the perfect spot for a rail yard. As you can see, they've got plenty of room. Lots of activity everywhere you look. I've always thought the eastbound hump was the busier of the two. And you can see that it's almost a double hump itself. That it's got two tracks that they can push trains over. Where I got stranded the last time I came through was about a mile south of here, or pardon me, a mile east of here, further into the yard, just past, maybe 2 miles down those tracks. And you can see this isn't the greatest place to spend time, if you can avoid it, for sure. And I think they also service the locomotives as far as fuel and sanding and all that kind of stuff over here for eastbound trains also. And there's my car. Anyway, on we go.